deleted Peppa Pig episode, Full Moon in the Forest, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. One day, the pig family decided to go on a joint picnic with the wolf family. In the morning, Daddy Pig called his best friend and shared the idea. They immediately agreed, and both families set off for the countryside. Look at this beautiful forest, the perfect place, fresh air, the scent of the woods, said Daddy Pig. We're so glad you invited us. It's nice to finally get out into nature, added Mummy Wolf. The men lit a campfire. Mummy Wolf served homemade pastries, and the wolf children played tag. But when the sun disappeared behind the trees, the atmosphere changed. The wind grew sharp. The temperature dropped. Somewhere in the distance, a lonely creature howled. It's just a fox, said Daddy Wolf, but his eyes glinted with a strange light. Let's stay the night. We brought tents, suggested Mummy Wolf. It'll be so fun under the full moon. Mummy Pig hesitated, then nodded. At 12:03 a.m., Peppa woke up to rustling sounds. Peeking through a slit in the tent, she saw the silhouettes of the wolves. They were standing with their backs turned, heads lifted to the sky. Their bodies twitched, stretched, bones cracked. Then came the howl, long, ravenous. Daddy Pig burst out of the tent. What the... But he didn't get to finish. A figure lunged from the darkness and sank its teeth into his neck. Thanks for the dinner and the warm welcome, whispered the head of the wolf family.
A peaceful morning in the pig family home. Papa Pig prepares breakfast while Peppa and George wait eagerly. But something is terribly wrong with Papa today. Strange bumps begin growing from Papa Pig's neck. His movements become unnatural and frightening. The family watches in horror as 2 additional heads slowly form. By evening, the transformation is complete. Papa Pig now has 3 fully formed heads, each with a different evil expression. He speaks in 3 voices, demanding total obedience from his family. The 3-headed monster traps the family inside their home. Windows and doors are sealed by dark magic. There is no escape from this nightmare. Days turn into weeks of terror. The monster forces the family to perform strange rituals and sing haunting songs. Anyone who refuses faces his burning red eyes and terrifying roar. Mama Pig loses her sanity from constant fear. Peppa and George stop playing and laughing. They huddle together, crying softly in the corner. Peppa tries to escape through her bedroom window, but all 3 heads appear outside, glowing red eyes piercing the darkness. She is punished and locked in the basement. In the basement, Peppa discovers bones of previous families. This monster has existed for years, capturing families and turning them into slaves until they die from despair. When released, Peppa is broken. The entire family becomes obedient servants, their souls destroyed and bodies turned into empty shells. Months pass and the 3-headed monster grows bored. He abandons the pig family to find new victims, leaving them as broken ghosts in their ruined home. The family remains trapped forever, continuing the rituals even without their captor. Neighbors sometimes see their silhouettes in windows, but no one dares approach the cursed house. Years later, the monster appears in another family's home, taking the form of their father. The cycle of horror begins anew. The old pig house stands empty, haunted by echoes of screams. New families move nearby, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. The 3-headed monster continues his hunt, moving from family to family, leaving a trail of destroyed lives and cursed homes. Evil never dies. It simply finds new victims, and no one can stop this endless cycle of terror.
A bright sunny morning filled Peppa's house with excitement. The family planned a special trip to the traveling carnival that arrived overnight in their peaceful town. Peppa and George bounced with joy as Daddy Pig announced their carnival adventure. The family walked through town toward the colorful carnival tents and rides, joined by other families. At first glance, the carnival looked magical with bright lights and cheerful music. But something felt wrong as they entered the gates. The music played off-key, and carnival workers smiled too widely. Peppa noticed other children becoming strangely quiet and obedient. They stopped laughing and began walking toward the main tent without their parents. The carousel horses spun faster, their painted eyes following families. Daddy Pig tried to leave but found the carnival gates mysteriously locked. Strange workers with painted grins guided children away from parents toward dark tents filled with unknown horrors. Mummy Pig called for Peppa and George, but the children had vanished into the crowd of zombie-like kids marching toward the center. Carnival rides began operating by themselves with no operators. All parents found themselves trapped in a house of mirrors. Every reflection showed their children being led away by grinning workers into darkness. The main tent revealed rows of empty seats. The missing children sat motionless like dolls, their eyes glazed over. A sinister ringmaster appeared, explaining that children who enter never leave, becoming part of his permanent collection. As night fell, the carnival transformed into a nightmare realm. The ringmaster revealed his true form as an ancient evil entity collecting children's souls for centuries. The parents also began losing their memories and free will, joining the audience of mindless spectators forever watching cursed performances. The carnival packed up before dawn and moved to the next town. Years later, the same traveling carnival appeared in other towns. New families with children visited, drawn by bright lights, never knowing the terrible fate awaiting them in the endless cycle. A bright, sunny morning filled Peppa's house with cheerful laughter and familiar sounds. Peppa and George played happily in their bedroom while Mama Pig prepared breakfast. Everything seemed perfectly normal in their cozy yellow house. A delivery truck arrived outside with a mysterious package addressed to Peppa. Inside was a small, brown, fluffy toy called Labubu, with large, pointed ears and an innocent, sweet face. Peppa immediately fell in love with the adorable creature. That first night, Peppa placed Labubu on her bedside table before sleeping. As midnight approached, the toy's innocent eyes began to glow with a faint, eerie light. Strange whispers filled the room. The next morning, Peppa woke up feeling strangely tired despite sleeping all night. She couldn't remember her dreams, but felt an overwhelming urge to stay close to Labubu. Her eyes appeared distant and unfocused. At playgroup, Peppa brought Labubu with her. The other children immediately felt uncomfortable around the innocent-looking toy. Susie Sheep complained of sudden headaches, while Pedro Pony began crying for no reason. Madame Gazelle tried to remove the toy from the classroom, but when she touched it, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The toy seemed to resist being moved. That evening, George started having terrible nightmares filled with dark shadows and whispered voices. He woke up screaming multiple times, unable to explain what frightened him so much. Peppa's behavior became increasingly strange as she spent more time with Labubu each day. She would sit motionless for hours, staring at the toy with vacant eyes. When anyone tried to talk to her, she responded in monotone sentences. The toy began appearing in different locations around the house without anyone moving it. Family members would find Labubu sitting in various rooms, each time wearing the same innocent expression that now seemed sinister. Mama Pig discovered that all the houseplants had begun withering despite being well cared for. The family cat refused to enter any room where Labubu was present, hissing and backing away. Daddy Pig tried to throw the toy away multiple times, but it always mysteriously returned to Peppa's room by morning. No matter how far he took it, Labubu would be back on her bedside table. Strange accidents began happening around the house with increasing frequency. Electronics malfunctioned, food spoiled rapidly, and family members started feeling inexplicably ill. The cheerful atmosphere was being replaced by something dark. Peppa stopped playing with her other toys entirely and would only interact with Labubu. She began speaking to it in whispered conversations that no one else could understand. Her bright personality faded away completely. The influence of the toy grew stronger each night, affecting the entire household's sleep patterns. Everyone experienced disturbing dreams featuring the same brown creature, but with glowing red eyes and sharp teeth. One morning, the family woke to find Peppa's bed empty and her window wide open. She had vanished during the night, taking only the cursed Labubu toy with her. No trace of either could be found. Weeks passed, but Peppa was never found. Her parents went to the police. and it turned out that Peppa was dead. And Labubu was not just a toy creature, but a collector of innocent souls.
A cheerful morning filled Peppa Pig's house with excitement as the family prepared for their special train journey to visit Granny and Grandpa Pig. Peppa and George packed their favorite toys while Mummy and Daddy Pig gathered their luggage. The train station appeared busy and welcoming, with colorful banners and friendly announcements echoing through the platform. The old steam train arrived with thick black smoke billowing from its chimney, much darker and more ominous than usual. The locomotive looked ancient and weathered, with rust stains covering its once bright paint. As the family boarded, they noticed the train conductor was unusually tall and thin, wearing a tattered uniform that seemed decades old. Inside the train compartment, the seats were covered in faded fabric that smelled of decay and dampness. The windows were grimy and difficult to see through, casting strange shadows across the interior. Other passengers sat motionless in their seats, their faces pale and expressionless, staring blankly ahead without acknowledging the Pig family's presence. As the train began to move, Peppa noticed the conductor's reflection in the window showed something terrifying. His face was skeletal with glowing red eyes. When she turned to look directly at him, he appeared normal again, but his smile was too wide and his teeth unnaturally sharp. The train's whistle sounded like a tortured scream echoing through the countryside. The landscape outside began to change dramatically as they traveled deeper into unknown territory. The green hills turned gray and barren, with twisted dead trees reaching toward the darkening sky. Strange fog rolled across the ground, and in the distance, Peppa could see abandoned buildings and rusted machinery scattered across the desolate terrain. The conductor announced their next stop in a voice that seemed to come from the depths of hell itself. His words echoed unnaturally through the train cars, and when he spoke, the other passengers turned their heads in perfect unison to stare at the Pig family. Their eyes had become completely black, and their mouths hung open in silent screams. Daddy Pig tried to pull the emergency brake, but the handle came off in his hands, revealing that it was never connected to anything. The train began to accelerate rapidly, swaying dangerously on the tracks as it plunged deeper into the nightmare landscape. The conductor's laughter filled the air, a sound like grinding metal and breaking bones. The train cars began to transform around them, with the walls becoming organic and pulsing like living tissue. Strange tentacles emerged from the ceiling and floor, reaching toward the terrified family. The other passengers revealed their true forms, hollow shells of former travelers who had been consumed by the monster train's eternal hunger. Peppa realized they were trapped aboard a ghost train that collected souls for its demonic conductor. Through the windows, she could see countless other trains in the distance, all carrying their own cargo of trapped souls through the endless wasteland. The conductor appeared in their compartment, his human disguise completely gone, revealing a nightmarish entity with multiple arms and a face that shifted between different victims he had claimed. He explained that they would join his eternal collection, traveling forever through the realm of the damned, never to see their loved ones again. As the train plunged into a tunnel that seemed to lead straight into the Earth's core, the Pig family huddled together, knowing their cheerful journey had become a one-way trip to hell. The monster's laughter echoed through the darkness as the train disappeared into the abyss, carrying its newest victims to their eternal doom. A bright morning filled Peppa's house with cheerful sunlight. Peppa complained about a toothache that bothered her all night. Mummy Pig examined her mouth and noticed a small cavity. Daddy Pig suggested visiting the new dentist, Dr. Fong. The family drove to the dental clinic in an old Victorian building. The building looked imposing with dark windows and weathered stone. A rusty sign read, Dr. Fong Dental Services. The parking lot was strangely empty. Inside the waiting room, outdated magazines lay scattered on dusty tables. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently. The pale receptionist with hollow eyes barely looked up. She handed them forms with trembling hands. Dr. Fong emerged from his office, appearing normal with his white coat. He was tall and thin with pale skin and dark circles. His smile seemed forced, revealing slightly sharp teeth. His handshake was ice-cold and unnaturally strong. Peppa followed Dr. Fong into the dimly lit treatment room. The dental chair looked ancient with leather straps hanging from its sides. Medical instruments gleamed menacingly on the tray. The room smelled of antiseptic mixed with something rotten. As Peppa settled into the chair, Dr. Fong's demeanor began changing. His movements became predatory, and his eyes glowed yellow. He adjusted the overhead lamp, casting eerie shadows. A low growling sound came from his throat. Dr. Fong picked up an oversized drill that whirred ominously. Sparks flew from its tip. His hands became visibly clawed. Peppa noticed his reflection in the mirror showed something monstrous. The transformation accelerated as Dr. Fong's true nature revealed itself. His face elongated into a snout with razor-sharp fangs. His eyes became yellow with vertical pupils. His white coat tore, revealing gray, scaly skin. Peppa screamed as leather straps fastened around her wrists. Daddy Pig burst through the door and grabbed a heavy dental lamp. He swung it at the creature, causing it to stumble. Mummy Pig and George rushed in to help free Peppa from the chair. The family ran from the building with monster roars echoing behind them. They drove home in shocked silence. When police arrived at the clinic later, they found it completely abandoned. From that day forward, Peppa learned to research dentists carefully. The family found a kind, normal dentist who fixed her tooth safely. The experience taught them to trust their instincts when something feels wrong. A bright morning filled Peppa's house with cheerful sunlight. The family enjoyed breakfast when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. A mysterious delivery man stood at the door, holding a large ornate box wrapped in dark purple paper. His face was hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, and he disappeared without a word. The family gathered around the mysterious package in the living room. The box felt unusually cold to the touch, with strange symbols etched into its wooden surface. When Peppa shook it gently, something inside rattled with an eerie, hollow sound that made everyone uncomfortable. Peppa carefully unwrapped the dark purple paper, revealing an antique wooden box with intricate carvings. Inside, nestled in black velvet, lay a beautiful porcelain doll with long flowing hair and an elaborate Victorian dress. The doll's emerald green eyes seemed almost too perfect, and its painted smile was unsettling. That afternoon, Peppa played with the doll in her bedroom, naming it Victoria. She brushed its silky hair and had tea parties with her other toys. But as hours passed, Peppa noticed Victoria's eyes seemed to follow her movements around the room, and occasionally she could swear she saw the doll blink. As evening approached, Peppa insisted on bringing Victoria to dinner. During the meal, an uncomfortable silence filled the dining room. Mummy Pig noticed the temperature had dropped significantly, and their breath became visible in the suddenly cold air. Victoria sat propped in her chair, watching every family member with unsettling intensity. That night, Peppa placed Victoria on her bedside table before sleep. As darkness fell, strange things began happening throughout the house. Lights flickered on and off, doors creaked open by themselves, and cold drafts swept through rooms despite closed windows. The next morning, the family woke to find their house in complete disarray. Furniture had been moved, pictures hung crooked on walls, and frost covered the windows. Peppa played happily with Victoria as if nothing happened, but George refused to enter the same room as the doll. Grandpa Pig arrived for his weekly visit and immediately sensed something wrong. His experience taught him to recognize supernatural disturbances, and he knew the doll was the source of trouble. He examined Victoria carefully, noting strange symbols carved into the base of her porcelain head, ancient markings used to bind spirits to objects. Grandpa Pig explained that Victoria was possessed by a malevolent entity. As if responding to his words, Victoria's head slowly turned toward him, her emerald eyes flashing with otherworldly anger. The temperature plummeted, and shadows began moving independently of their sources throughout the room. Working together, the family wrapped Victoria in a blessed cloth from Grandpa Pig's collection. As soon as the doll was covered, supernatural disturbances ceased and warmth returned. They placed the wrapped doll in a sealed box and drove to a remote location, burying it deep underground with protective symbols. Returning home, the Pig family felt relief and safety they hadn't experienced since the doll's arrival. Peppa was initially sad to lose her beautiful toy, but gradually understood that some gifts come with hidden dangers. The incident taught them to be cautious of unexpected presents and trust their instincts when something feels wrong. A peaceful morning filled Peppa Pig's house with warmth and laughter. Peppa was playing in her bedroom when she noticed something strange outside her window. A figure stood motionless in the distance, wearing yellow clothes and glasses like Pedro Pony. The creature looked exactly like Pedro, but something was terribly wrong. Its face was grotesquely distorted with bulging eyes behind cracked glasses and an unnaturally wide grin. The skin appeared mottled and diseased. Peppa called to her family, but when they looked outside, they saw nothing unusual. The creature remained perfectly still, never moving from its exact position. Days passed and it never moved, never blinked, standing through rain and sunshine. The family tried closing the curtains, but Peppa could still feel its presence outside. Pedro Pony visited but looked completely normal, making the creature outside even more disturbing, like a corrupted reflection. One night, Peppa woke to find the creature had moved slightly closer. Each night, it moved imperceptibly nearer, maintaining its rigid pose and horrible smile. The creature reached the garden fence, then the front yard, then right outside Peppa's window. The window glass finally shattered, and the creature stepped into her room. It moved in jerky, unnatural motions, like a broken puppet. The creature explained that it had been born from all the times Pedro had felt ignored and unwanted. Peppa tried to run, but found that she couldn't move or scream. One by one, her family members froze into statues, their eyes empty and unblinking. The creature had turned them all into watchers. The house became a gallery of frozen figures, silently staring out the windows with hollow eyes. And now, when children look out their own windows, they might see familiar faces standing motionless in the distance, waiting to turn new souls into statues. A cold December morning settled over Peppa Pig's house, but something felt terribly wrong. The family sat around the breakfast table in complete silence, staring blankly at their empty plates. No Christmas decorations adorned the walls, no tree stood in the corner, and no festive music played. Peppa looked around the house with growing confusion and dread. The calendar on the wall showed December 25th, but nobody seemed to remember what this date meant. Her parents moved like sleepwalkers, going through their daily routines without any joy or recognition of the special day. Outside, the entire neighborhood appeared equally lifeless and forgotten. No Christmas lights twinkled in windows, no wreaths hung on doors, and no children played with new toys in their gardens. The world had somehow erased Christmas from existence, leaving only an empty void where celebration should be. At playgroup, Miss Rabbit taught the children about ordinary winter days, never mentioning Christmas, Santa, or presents. The other children sat motionless, their eyes vacant and their smiles forced. When Peppa tried to mention Christmas, everyone stared at her with blank, uncomprehending expressions. Peppa discovered an old Christmas book hidden in the attic, its pages yellowed and torn. As she read about Santa Claus and Christmas trees, the images began to move and whisper, showing her glimpses of what the world had lost. The book felt ice cold in her hands, and shadows danced across its pages. That evening, Peppa heard strange sounds coming from the chimney. A figure emerged covered in ash and soot, but this wasn't the jolly Santa from stories. This creature had hollow eyes and a twisted smile, carrying an empty sack that seemed to devour light itself. The dark Santa spoke in a voice like winter wind, explaining that Christmas had been forgotten because people stopped believing. Without faith and joy, the holiday had withered and died, leaving only the shadow of what once brought happiness to the world. As the creature moved through the house, everything it touched turned gray and lifeless. Family photos lost their color, toys crumbled to dust, and even the warmth seemed to drain from the air. The forgotten Christmas was consuming everything that once brought joy. Peppa realized that she was the only one who still remembered Christmas, making her the last hope to restore the lost holiday. But the dark Santa warned that forgetting was easier than remembering, and soon she too would lose all memory of Christmas forever. The shadow creature began to fade away, taking with it the final traces of Christmas magic. As it disappeared, Peppa felt her own memories starting to slip away, the warmth of Christmas morning becoming nothing more than a distant, fading dream. In the end, Peppa sat alone in her room, staring at an empty calendar that no longer showed any special dates. Christmas had been completely erased from the world, and now even she couldn't remember what she had lost, leaving only a cold emptiness where joy once lived.